School resource officers were once relatively rare. Today, especially here in Texas, they're a regular part of school life. After the tragedy in Uvalde, state lawmakers required an armed officer on every campus, and districts have spent billions expanding school police programs. But a recent investigation by the New York Times and the San Antonio Express News found more than 2,600 incidents where officers physically intervened with students, including handcuffing elementary school children, using pepper spray, and making arrests over situations that previous generations might remember being handled in the principal's office. Today, we're asking some tough questions. What exactly is a school resource officer supposed to be doing? Where's the line between keeping students safe and criminalizing normal childhood behavior? And are we asking police officers to solve problems that they were never trained to handle?
When I read this story, what jumped out at me wasn't about schools keeping kids safe. Everybody wants that. What bothered me was how little guideline was put in place. When we start using police in schools the same way we use police on the streets, we've missed the message somewhere. They aren't supposed to be there for discipline. What happened to getting sent to the principal's office? Wasn't the goal to have officers there for safety? I don't think putting a 6-year-old in handcuffs should ever feel normal. Kids have meltdowns. Kids make bad decisions. That's part of growing up. I'm not anti police, and I'm not saying schools shouldn't have security. But if we're going to put officers in schools, we need clear expectations about when they're involved, how force can be used, and who makes those decisions. Because there is a message when we start treating children like criminals instead of kids.
Okay, here's my deal. I came away from this article with a different reaction. First, I think it's important to remember that headlines are designed to provoke strong emotions, and the New York Times knows exactly what it's doing here. But underneath the reporting is a real problem. We've created a role that's almost impossible to do well. Parents expect schools to help raise their kids, schools accept police officers to deal with discipline issues, and police officers are trained to establish control and respond to threats, not navigate the emotional nuance of childhood development. It's like trying to drive nails into drywall with a sledgehammer. You're going to end up with holes in your walls. I want to be clear up front. I'm not pro police and I'm not anti police. I'm pro good police and anti bad police. And there are certainly plenty of examples of atrocious judgment on the part of some of the officers that we'll talk about today. But to me, the question isn't whether officers are good or bad. It's whether we've asked them to do a job they were never designed or trained to do in the first place. Welcome to Two Millennials and Mom.
I'm Callie.
I'm Cole.
And I'm Mom. And Cole, I agree with you on that we're asking them to do a job that they're not trained for, that they're not supposed to be doing. I mean, I know your answer is, what are you supposed to do instead with a 6-year-old throwing a tantrum? But we've been dealing with 6-year-old tantrums for a long, long, long time, and without using handcuffs on them.
I understand, but if the option is to physically restrain a 6-year-old to prevent them from committing violence against an adult, regardless of whether they're going to hurt the adult or not, it's unacceptable for them to be kicking anyone. So what do you do instead?
That was kind of my question as well. We have a puppy that we're dealing with right now. And that's part of being a puppy. Do I want him biting me? Absolutely not. Do I have to address that in real time? Yes, definitely. Are there right and wrong ways to address that in real time? Absolutely. And I think that the same applies here. I mean,
Sure.
I can't imagine, hey, we're going to handcuff Augie every time he annoys one of us by doing a puppy thing. Like,
Right.
they're
But it,
still
it
6
goes
years
right
old.
back to the sledgehammer analogy. That's the tools they have.
But I don't think that that's true. I think that that's the tools that they're choosing to use, and I think that this goes back to that one of my favorite Coleisms. We need to be carefully regulated, not heavily regulated. And in my
Sure.
personal opinion, all of the situations that we're sitting here talking about today, getting ready to talk about, these are perfect examples of heavy regulation.
I get where you're coming from. Again, to me, it's tool for the job. And I'm sure we'll get into this, but police officers are not supposed to be there to be disciplinarians.
I
But that's what they're
agree.
being used for. And the training that they have, the tools that they know to use disciplinarily, or handcuffs and tasers.
And I think that that's where we need to step back. We're always talking about we need to address the root of the problem, not all of the symptoms. I think that that's what needs to happen in this case. We need to go back and start looking at the quote unquote legislation that has been put in place for all of these school resource officers to be input into schools and injected into schools, and stop saying, hey, teachers, you don't have any power. Sorry, guys, this isn't your job. You need to call the resource officer. You need to let them handle it for exactly that reason, Cole, because they do not have the professional training and mental wherewithal to be able to handle a 6-year-old with the delicacy that it requires, the way that a
And
teacher would,
I'm going to call
should.
this out really early on. This starts at home.
Oh, yeah.
This starts with the parents.
We had really great parents, and there are absolutely bright, shiny moments of us being assholes too.
Sure. How many times did you end up in handcuffs? How many times did you end up in the resource officer's office
How many times did
threatening
you
to be
kick
arrested?
somebody? Because if you did, I didn't know about it because I would have taken care of that.
For
Exactly.
for the record, I have never been in handcuffs. My name is Callie. I am 38 years old. I have never been in handcuffs.
That makes one of us. Mom?
We know.
Never been in handcuffs,
Okay.
not
So
even for
I'm the only
fun.
one here. I've been in handcuffs, unfortunately, multiple times, none of them in school.
Well, that's
Because
good.
guess what? I lived at my parents' house and I knew that if I got in trouble, there were repercussions at home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I mean, Cole, I don't disagree with you. And I think that's a bigger picture that somewhere we've lost that. We've lost teaching right and wrong at home. We've hogtied our teachers. I mean, I definitely remember one of the first times that I did a student teaching was in a middle school, and this kid was mouthing off, and I walked over and put my hands on his shoulders, and he went and reported me immediately. And I got a little lecture on, "We don't touch the students." And I'm like, "Okay." But, you
So
know
how
What are
exactly.
you allowed to do? How
Yeah,
can you reprimand a child? I mean, I think that we have taken that whole concept of everybody being so grossly offended by every single thing ever all of the time is
yeah.
certainly amplified in these situations, because it handcuffs anybody in authority to be able to stop it and say, that's not how we act.
Yeah.
And here's the
I
thing. You're grossly offended, and I'm not saying either of you specifically.
Understood you.
You're grossly offended by a child being disciplined. I'm grossly offended by that child not being disciplined.
okay. I can even go there with you, but again, you have to choose the discipline in relation to what's going on, and handcuffing a 6-year-old just doesn't seem like it's there. There's a story in here also about a police officer pulling her gun on a teenager who got caught with a vape and ran, and when she cornered him, she literally pulled her gun on him and told him that she would effing shoot him.
That's what police
That's
officers are trained to do.
I don't care. That's
Inappropriate.
inappropriate.
I don't
Here's
disagree.
the deal.
But again,
They're
sledgehammer,
they're
drywall.
tasing students. There's a kid that's interviewed in this article who got tased because he was leaving school after getting in trouble. And we have laws against using tasers in juvenile detention centers. So what on earth would make that correct in a public school?
Well, I think that that's the thing. I think that we have kind of, as a society, jumped to, this is the solution. This is the answer. This is
Yeah.
all that we can do. This is what needs to be done. And I think that we have foregone the careful regulation and crossed over into the heavy regulation, and we need to back up and start defining those rules. This is what's allowed, this is what isn't. And I think that we need to then disseminate all of those rules amongst each other, amongst ourselves, amongst the parents, amongst the students, because, like Cole, you were talking about a minute ago, we knew that if we got in trouble at school, we got in trouble at home. That's what we knew. So if our parents were to make the rules, we would be fine for the most part. We're still kids and we're still gonna be assholes sometimes,
We're
but
gonna mess up,
we're gonna
sure.
mess up. But there are certainly people that I know that their parents making the rules, my parents would not let that fly. And so I think that we have to figure out who makes those rules, to be able to define the rules, to be able to determine what it is and isn't acceptable, allowable behavior. And in those instances, and you can't sit here and say, well, if he hits with his right hand, his dominant hand, then this is the solution. But he hits with his not, like, we can't go into every single minutia detail of it, but a general concept of if this, then that. If
Yeah.
you were laying
Sure.
hands on another person, then this is the result of that. Like, it needs to
So
be general enough.
sure. So really, it's not careful or heavy regulation. It's a complete lack of regulation.
I
There
think
are
in
no
this
guidelines set.
yeah.
And so because there are no guidelines set, these officers are defaulting to their training because those are the tools they have.
Well, supposedly the school boards are supposed to be responsible for setting the guidelines, but then they interviewed a lot of the school boards and they were like, I mean,
Me?
Several
they're
said they were unaware that their officers used force on students at all.
yeah.
So
Well,
if you're a
because
school administrator, if you're on the school board, what is your job?
Yeah.
to
I mean,
represent the
It's to
school.
know what's going on in the school,
Yeah.
right? Because you cannot represent it if you don't know what's going on in the school.
But I think that that's kind of part of it. Cole, you're sitting here
Sure.
talking about there's no regulations, and I think that there are. I think that they're just piss poor. Like the whole thing mom was talking
Mhm.
about a minute ago, tasers are not allowed in juvenile detention centers, but are allowed in schools. Somebody had to say,
A lack.
all right. All right.
Yeah.
But I think that there's more than that. There is things that we have learned, especially reading this article and going through this, that uses of force don't have to be recorded anywhere. That's weird.
Yeah.
That doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense.
That's inviting violations.
Yeah. I mean, there were all kinds of things that as you're going through this, you're like, red
Yeah.
flag,
Yeah.
because it was messy.
For one, there needs to be a higher standard for school resource officers than there is for regular officers. That
Absolutely.
said, we need higher standards for the officers that we have not in schools too.
Absolutely.
Okay. This is going to show my boomer, but I'm going to tell you something.
We're used to it.
If if a police officer walked up to me and immediately started cussing at me and by far used the F word with me,
The
I mean,
reaction is going to be different.
my hair's going to go red and I'm going to be pissed off because I hold them to a standard that says, wait a minute, you're escalating things that don't need to be escalated.
But here's the
You're
thing:
not,
what are they approaching you for? Because if
it
you're
doesn't
robbing a
matter.
bank, no, it does. It
No.
100% does.
Uh,
You don't get to expect a police officer to act professionally if I'm holding a gun to someone's head. Because you know what their
oh,
professional
yes,
duty
I
is if I'm
do.
doing that? Is shooting me.
Professionally, yes. And professionally,
Yes.
that may involve shooting you, but still, there has to be a level of decorum that is expected. Hard pass. Like, that cannot, the moment that we lower
Good
those
luck.
standards,
And if
You're
you're
expecting
doing that in a school, if you're doing that to kids in a school, I don't care what age, if you're doing that, you don't have any business being there. You need to be out of there. Now, what I'm hearing y'all say is that we've trained police to act one way and that we need these police to act a different way. So maybe it shouldn't be a regular police officer. Maybe there's another level. I mean, I don't think it needs to be a security guard.
Yeah, we certainly don't need to reduce the standard.
yeah.
No, but I
And
want there to be some integrity and honesty there, and I expect for you to be aware of the situation. But I expect for you to be aware of that situation, whether you're on the street or whether you're in the school. And I'm just telling you, if I'm going to say this, if one of y'all had come home and said, "Yeah, the resource officer tased me today," your mama's going to be up at that school, and there's going to be words going on.
Bullshit. You're going to say, what did you do?
I will say that first, but
And
then
if
I'm
it
going to
was
be up there.
warranted, you're going to spank my ass and nothing else is going to come from it.
I do not think that tasing a kid in school is warranted.
Let's
Ever?
say I, as a high schooler
Ever.
who, and let's be honest, as a 15-year-old kid, I could have physically done a lot of damage to a lot of my teachers
You
who were
could have.
primarily middle-aged to older women. So say I pick up one of my teachers by the throat and I'm slamming her head against a chalkboard. Does that not warrant a physical response?
Yes, it does warrant a physical response.
So would
And
you have
I
been upset with a
guess
police officer for tasing me?
No, but she would have spanked your ass after then, too.
Hell yeah, you would have gone and grabbed the taser and tased me yourself.
Let me borrow that. He's not wrong.
I'm not saying that that should be the default response for every situation. That's not the
Okay.
argument I'm making.
And
Okay.
that's what I'm saying. We have to put standards in place. And again, it cannot be so detailed and so specific. Well, again, I'm going to go back to the dominant hand versus non-dominant hand. Like, we cannot be ridiculous, but it could be as open-ended about if you're putting hands on somebody, that it warrants a different response. If you're putting somebody else actively, knowingly in danger, that warrants a different response.
Okay. I'll go
If
there
you are
with you.
providing a threat, that warrants a different response. If
I
you're sitting
also
here
think
mouthing off as a teenager, cussing out your teacher, that warrants a different response too. But they're not all the same response that is warranted.
agreed. I agree
Agreed.
with you.
Because here's the thing, to go to the extreme, if a kid takes a gun to school, if I have a kid at that school, I hope that police officer shoots him.
That goes back to the principal that we were praising here a few weeks ago in Oklahoma, who tackled the kid with the gun. Got shot in the process, but tackled the kid. Like, that's a physical response. And we said, way to go, buddy. Awesome
did.
job.
Yeah.
And stand by that.
And if he'd been a police officer, I would have stood behind that for him too.
Because
But-
that's the thing. Some responses have physical reactions and responses
Warrant.
that are warranted.
But a kid mouthing off or a kid kicking, a 6-year-old throwing a tantrum doesn't warrant this kind of hands-on, knocking heads kind of thing.
So what
Sure.
what do you do to a 6-year-old who's kicking and hurting people?
Even attempting to harm people.
I mean, I guess I would think as a mother, I'm going to sit you down in a chair and you're going to stay there.
What if he won't sit down? He's obviously
will.
doesn't have much regard for your kids would, because we understand there are consequences. This 6-year-old doesn't seem to understand that because he's kicking teachers and throwing a tantrum and it's not stopping. So you can say, Timmy, go sit in the corner all you want to. What do you do when he doesn't go sit in the corner?
Well, first off, I'm not going to tell him to go sit in the corner. I'm going to say, get your ass in that chair right now and sit down.
And if he doesn't?
I thought we weren't using choice words with children.
We aren't. Well, maybe I would.
But see, that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's exactly the point. Like,
There is a difference between ass, not that I should have used it with children. There's a difference between ass and the F word.
This is what, episode 1 or 2? I'm not sure there
4.
is.
and
Is
Is it a word that your kid can't say?
And that's a perception issue and
Yeah.
subjective
Yeah.
at that.
It is.
And
That's true.
we cannot legislate morality. We cannot sit here and say, no, you cannot say the F word, but you can say ass. Like, we can't, that's ridiculous.
Agree.
So my question still stands. Mom, what are you going to do? And I'm going to go back to the dog. I'm going to go back to the puppy. We can sit here all day long and say, Augie, sit. Augie, no. Augie, down. And sometimes that doesn't do shit.
And when
And
that
kids are the
happens, I'm
same.
going to put him in his kennel or I'm going to put him outside
Which is
and
what?
separate him from the deal.
By what means?
If I have to grab his collar and tug him in there, then that's where he's going.
We
So a
got
physical
yanked by our
response.
ears. Yeah.
I mean, here's the deal. Augie did do that the other day, and Augie and I kind of had a come to Jesus conversation. I sent you a picture, Callie, because he got mad at me
Yeah.
and wouldn't even look at me. I mean, he
Yeah.
had his back to me. He is definitely in that 2-year-old teenage phase, and he got mad, and I thought, dude, just be mad. That's fine with me because I
Yeah.
can be madder.
But what did it take?
I spanked his butt and told him to place,
A physical response.
and I meant it.
And sometimes it's warranted.
And I'm going to tell you something. If it had been the 6-year-old, and and I would have gotten in trouble for that in school today, but I don't see anything wrong with swatting a 6-year-old on the butt and saying, "Sit down,
How is that any
don't
worse than
move."
handcuffs?
There's a message when you put a kid in handcuffs.
And there's not when you hit them? What if you're in a position where you can't hit them? Because you'll be sued.
And that's exactly what would happen today, is you would get sued for but you would get sued for even telling them to sit down, and I think that's a problem.
I
I mean,
agree. So let's say they don't use handcuffs, they physically restrain them with their hands. How is that different? How?
So if you tell them to go sit down and they don't, and you tell them again to go sit down, how many times do you have to tell them before you physically put your hands on them and sit them down? And then they get
well,
back up again. Because again, sometimes kids can be assholes.
and you have no idea what kind of condition this kid was in. Did
No.
he, I mean, was he a regular 6-year-old or was he a 6-year-old with some emotional issues? Was he having a meltdown over something that had happened before he even got into school? Did his dog die or his mom die, or
It,
you don't know any of those things, but those are things that you as an adult in a school have responsibility to look for.
uh, right, but again, I'm going back to the sledgehammer analogy. That's not their job. They're not trained for that.
I'm thinking about it was a while ago. I want to say it was in Portland, for sure in Oregon. The Portland Police Department hired a bunch of mental health professionals to go on calls, and they had an astounding rate of change in terms of they would go on calls with people who were on drugs or who were in really rough situations or who had mental health issues and were having various episodes, and they could deploy whichever officer, whichever person was the best fit for that job, and it was incredibly successful. So,
And incredibly expensive.
but again, we're already spending millions and millions and millions of dollars on this.
In the years since this law went into effect in Texas in 2023, we've gone from 900 million to 1.3 billion in spending for officers.
So we've had roughly a 50% increase. Now double it.
I mean, and Cole, I do think that teachers are trained somewhat to handle kids' emotions. I do, and I'm
Sure,
hoping that the
teachers are,
majority of
but police officers generally are not. It talks about it in this article.
yeah,
Most of them are getting 20 hours of training, which is half of the recommended amount, the
yeah.
minimum recommended amount. But again, that's not supposed to be their job. That's supposed to
Well,
be the teachers' jobs, but the teachers are hamstrung because they can't do it because they'll get sued.
And on top of that, we've got all of these. We were talking the other day about our niece's school, who they can't hire enough teachers to even have a 5-day school week
Because they don't pay
that's
them
true.
enough.
because they don't pay them enough. So where's all this money going to come from?
I mean,
Who's going to
to
foot
be
the
perfectly
bill?
honest, this is
Cryptocurrency.
a
Oh,
problem
God.
that is, one, going to require more spending in our schools. Should we be concerned about more spending for our kids? Is that really what we're going to put up a fuss about? Oh my
No,
gosh, we're investing in our future?
I think
and
that
not my
depends
point.
on how we're spending that money.
Agree. That money needs to be spent efficiently and intelligently.
Well,
Yes.
I understand and I agree. General police officers need more training than they get, in my opinion.
Uh, I mean,
Specialized police officers need even more.
we know that even when we did our gun safety courses, we probably took more individually. We probably took more training than most police officers get on handling guns.
Probably.
That's criminal. I mean, that's just wrong.
Now,
You
a lot of police officers are going to go and take that training on their own time, but it's not part of the job.
It's not mandated either.
Right. It's not provided.
Yeah. So we're asking them to do things, but not giving them the training. And I think this is the same situation. We're asking them to do things. We're not giving them the training for it. We're not giving them the guidelines for it. And we're surprised that it's going to hell in a handbasket.
what
Now,
other? Go ahead.
I, I,
Sledgehammer. Drywall.
I just want to point out, this is not every single police officer in the school. We talked to a friend of ours in a local school district. Their officers are not allowed to do
But
any kind of discipline.
but they're not officers. They're security guards. They're marshals. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Who are you going to pay more attention to? A police officer or a Paul Blart Mall cop?
They're not even
No,
mall cops.
That's
that
the
is
point.
not what she said.
That's what you
She
read to
said
me.
she said that they got a waiver because they couldn't afford a
Police
police
officers.
officer.
So they don't have
So
officers.
they settled for Paul Blart Mall cop.
That may not be what you think it said, but that's what it meant. Speaking from someone who went to schools growing up that did have resource officers and had Paul Blart Mall cops, they are not the same thing. You're
No.
talking about two completely different calibers.
I didn't get that that's what they were doing.
And two
That's what
completely
they're
different
doing.
responses to those different levels of authority.
Yeah, for sure.
The air quotes there only apply to one of them. Just FYI. Mom,
I
tell
know.
us about the honor student.
Oh my gosh. So this honor student, just a couple of weeks before graduation,
She's a senior.
yes, she was a senior, walked by a classroom that had a plastic bell hanging outside, and when she hit the bell, it fell. Now, the first thing that concerns me is that she was worried enough about getting in trouble over a plastic bell that she hid it in a planter and went on about her business because she didn't want to get in trouble. They then suspended her for 3 days for theft of a $13 plastic bell.
Do we know what the purpose of the
Zero
bell was?
tolerance.
No, it was hanging outside of a classroom for some reason.
The
So they
point of the bell
suspend her.
doesn't really matter.
I think to an extent it does. If this was a bell that was supposed to be used by somebody who needed help because they were handicapped, and this was an ADA kind of, I have no idea. If this
Yeah.
was something that she wasn't supposed to touch or she was allowed to touch, I think are two very different things.
So
Regardless,
she
this
gets
is
in
a
trouble.
young person who doesn't know that the best way to face your mistakes is to own them. She doesn't have that experience yet. So she tried to hide it. I get that. I
Sure.
So
relate.
she
Yeah.
gets in trouble. She gets suspended from school, and she's thinking, okay, somebody's missed the story here. Let me go talk to one of the principals and get this cleared up. And instead, because she makes a text to her mom in the principal's office, the principal calls 2 police officers in who arrest her, take her down, put her in handcuffs, and tell her that she's going to jail for theft.
Fairly violently, if I remember correctly.
For a $13 plastic bell that nobody has thought was important enough to say what the bell was for. So, she's shocked in the first place that this is happening. She's super shocked that she gets in trouble again and additional suspension in the process of all of this, and then gets taken down by 2 police officers and gets taken to jail. Traumatized enough that she skipped graduation. Now, I have a really hard time. I mean, Cole, like you said, she's a 17 or 18-year-old kid who maybe hasn't learned how to face consequences. But this is such a tiny consequence. I mean, okay, so
It should have been an insignificant infraction. Yeah.
exactly, that you're just sitting there going, what were y'all thinking? It did not help me that the principal is seen in the video sitting behind them on her phone eating potato chips while all of this is going on. So that's not really being the principal that I want my kids to have, who's paying attention and is advocating for this talented student. So I'm a little annoyed by that too.
Agree.
I-
So there's problems all the way up and down the chain.
All the way.
Yeah, but I told Cole there were several times throughout this article. I, unlike Cole, am not anti New York Times, but there were several times throughout this article I was reading it going, but you're not giving the full story here. You're not giving the full context here. But wait, hold on. You're missing
I
a
feel
lot of
so
information here.
validated right now.
Well, take it for what it
Okay, but
is,
I'm gonna
but
say
it won't
this,
last.
part of that is because it's not required to be reported.
But I
We
think
talked to 12 of the people that we talked to said this. How many people did you talk to?
I think that there's some
But
fear
the reason
mongering. I
is
think that
because
there's
they're
some lies by omission in this. And as silly as it is, I think that something like this Bell story, I think that there are details that are pertinent to actually getting the full context of what was going on that are not shared.
I think it's highly likely that that is the case.
you do. You think that she's
Yes.
more guilty or that it warranted her being
I
treated the
think
way she
there are
was?
I think there are parts of the story not being told that may very well be relevant to how the situation escalated. Do I think it's reasonable for the escalation to have escalated the way that it did with the information presented? No, but I don't think we have the whole story either.
But I think about the Bell and switch it out with a fire alarm. You know you're not supposed to touch that. And if you go and pull the fire alarm, A, it's a federal crime. And B, everybody is taught this whole time, their whole time through school, don't pull a fire alarm unless there's a fire. Don't do this, like this is bad. So I want to know what the bell is for. That's why I'm asking. Was this bell, and that's why I went to ADA compliance. I think I have no idea what the bell is for. Has she been taught all of these years in high school, do not touch this bell, and then she's walking up, whacking it? That's inappropriate. Do I think that that warrants her getting tackled by two grown men and arrested? No, I don't. But I still want to, like, I have detailed questions that I want to know that I think are relevant to the story and the context of the story that are missing.
Context is important.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a little bit that there's a possibility that there's more to this story, but maybe not. Maybe this is the story.
You're right. It could be. Where are the responses from the principal, the police officers involved, anyone else involved in the scenario? Because none of that is included. Now, allegedly, no law enforcement responded.
Which is weird, even
Yeah.
to freedom of information requests, which is a red flag, another red flag for me.
But
Sure.
There
again,
has to be accountability.
because we have no guidelines set here, they don't have to report anything that happens
Yeah.
in this school. It's
There
not
is
the
no
same.
accountability.
No, it's not the same as if you're in a detention center and you have to report, or you're in a police department and you are required to report, yes, I pulled my weapon here, or yes, this happened. None of that is there. So
I wonder
if
why. Who decided that? You know what? We're just not going to do that in schools. Don't worry about
Well,
it.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that it was probably the legislators who were more concerned with looking good by putting police officers in the schools to protect the kids than they were with actually making a functioning system.
It
I
is
think it was a knee jerk.
2026. How in the hell have we not figured out that legislators are not the end all be all, know all of all of these things that they don't know anything about?
But they're the ones who make the legislations.
And
They're
that's
the ones who wrote the
fucked.
rules.
Completely fucked.
I don't disagree with you, but that is the state.
Blah. That's how I feel about that.
Change it.
I'm
I
working on it.
agree. But we know this is a problem. We know that they do things to make themselves look good that are half baked. They do it all the time.
That's true.
From the lowest school board to the president.
I agree. I agree completely. And I think that if we don't sit here and start making noise about these things and as simple formats as on this podcast, then we are culpable. We are complicit to all of these crimes that we are allowing them to get away with.
But we can't do it by ourselves. And
Oh, I
Callie,
agree.
nobody else is paying attention. Why
Which
do you
is why
think
we're
these?
talking about it.
I
I
agree.
think that's why the New York Times and the San Antonio Express did what they did and reported their article as they did. I also found it totally amazing that when I went back to search for this article, I found tons and tons of videos where news organizations had picked this article up, particularly in Texas, and were discussing it in Texas about, wait a minute, what has happened here? Are these officers just out of control? Or is there more to this? So
Well, it's certainly what this article makes it out to look like. But
But
again,
that's starting the conversation, and I think that that counts for something.
are you
sure,
out of control if you have no rules?
Anarchy.
is it easier to be? Yes. Are you automatically? No. How many
I
good interactions do school resource officers have with kids in this time frame?
Yeah.
I think a
How
lot
many
of good ones.
interactions did they had that weren't escalated? Because I
Yeah.
bet the number is a lot higher than the numbers we're given in this.
We
I
wouldn't
mean, think
know.
about it.
Nothing's reported.
Callie, how
Yeah.
many kids were in your high school?
I had a graduating class of 550 people.
So 3 other years, so roughly 2,000? By the time I graduated, we had almost 6. That's one of 3 high schools in our district, which now I'm pretty sure has 4 or 5.
I think that the goal here is to say, okay, we need to step back here. We need to put some guidelines in place. And in my own little heart, I want to be able to have a communication with these officers to say, remember, these are kids. You're not on the street. You're not taking down perps. These are kids.
How many of these
Treat them like
officers are
kids.
barely not kids themselves?
Well, Cole,
We don't
I
have any
think
of
that
that context.
And some of them, Mom, I think that you've got to be careful with your words there because I think that to some extent, some of these kids that they're taking down are. Some of them are perps, as you so eloquently put it. Some of them are doing shitty things. Some of them are dangerous.
Some
you
of
know
them are
what?
committing crimes. They are
Yeah.
literally criminals.
Yeah.
Not
Not
one
all of
of the
them,
people
sure,
that were
Right.
listed that they talked about in this article would I consider a criminal.
because that would make the article moot.
Yeah. That's how fear mongering works.
No, maybe that's because this article might be truthful and things might be out of control.
Is a lie by omission still a lie?
Yes. But also, as we well know and has been well documented in every facet of history, there are 2 sides to 3 sides to every story, yours, mine, and the truth.
Yeah.
I am not saying that this article is invalid. It's not that it's invalid. It's just that it's not the whole story. And is it worth being published and put out there? Absolutely. Is it worth being discussed? Absolutely. Should it be addressed and looked into deeper and further? Absolutely. But we cannot say this article is the end all be all. Everything else
Oh,
has to be dictated by this. Like that would be just as
100,
asinine.
100% agree with you on that.
And again,
But I
if we take a
also
look,
don't think that
how
you
many
can just,
students are in the state of Texas? We know there are almost 400 police departments. How many
there's,
students are there in the state of Texas?
oh, I don't have any idea. I know that
And how
there
many
are
incidents are reported in this
11,000
article?
officers, school police officers now, and that's more than a lot of states have combined.
Texas
Yes,
public
because
schools
Texas is far and away larger than the vast majority of states, both by size and population.
for the school
You
year
missed the point.
24 to 25 in enrolled in Texas public schools alone was 5.5 million students, just over 5.5 million students.
And how many incidents are reported in this article?
Again, they're not required to be reported.
I understand, but how many examples do they give?
240 something is, I think, is what they got.
Okay, so a fraction of a percent?
No, no. The reporters identified more than 2,600 uses of force incidents.
Okay. So how many interactions did these police officers, these 11,000 police officers, have with students every day, much less across the course of a school year?
Yeah.
So the percentage of these interactions that are resulting in force, while unacceptable, is extremely minuscule when you take a look at the larger picture.
Okay, but I'm going to call you on the same thing. That doesn't mean that's the number of incidents. That's just the ones that were reported for this article.
I understand. But if you have a large number of people and a large number of interactions, things like this are going to happen. That I'm not saying that makes them acceptable,
Yeah.
but it makes it impossible to not happen. So highlighting just the negative interactions blows that out of proportion.
I think the part that intrigues me here is that I have a line. Don't tase my student. Don't cuss at my student. Don't handcuff my 6-year-old. And y'all see that in such a variance that you don't you think that there
Because it's
might be
situational.
reasons.
You can't just say there is a
Yeah.
line.
Because
Because what happens when the kid brings a gun to school? Oh, you
I-
can't discipline him. You can't do anything. Just let him kill everybody.
I go back to the scenario with the kid in the school in Oklahoma who walked in with a gun and the principal tackled him. If the principal had tased him, would that have been okay?
If he'd made him drop the gun, if he'd saved lives. And
So
So,
there
but
I'm
is
wait.
a
not
line where it's
saying,
acceptable.
Yeah.
yeah,
And what if the principal, I mean, we didn't hear any of it. There's no audio to any of those videos. But what if he said, "Hands up, motherfucker." Like, is that okay? The kid's already escalated everything to literally a life and death situation.
You can't
Is that
expect someone
okay?
to not have an emotional response to an emotional situation. Are you
again,
capable of having an emotionless response to an emotional situation?
No, I've seen you when bugs are
You can't read
involved.
an article without crying.
I don't even like either one of you.
That's fair. I get it.
I just think it's so interesting, though, that y'all have such shades of gray on this. And you hear me have such, because I didn't say, maybe I did.
I don't want you cursing at my students. I don't want
I
you
don't want you
handcuffing my
cursing at my
6-year-olds.
student.
I don't want you tasing them. Like, but
Tough.
sometimes that is the reality.
All right, here's the deal. There are exceptions to every rule.
Absolutely.
And so if a kid walks into school with a gun, yes, I expect them to take him down. And if they cuss in the process of doing that, I'm not going to say anything. But for minor incidents like what they were talking about here, those are not acceptable behavior.
But like Callie said, you don't have the whole story. You have what this
Maybe
article told
no,
you was the story.
we don't know that we have the whole story, but we don't know that we don't have the whole story.
But again,
You do know that you don't have the whole story because you haven't gotten a response from the police officers. You haven't gotten a response from the principal. You haven't gotten a response from anyone but the alleged victim.
That doesn't mean you don't have the story.
Yes, it does.
your
No.
side, my side, the truth.
Gosh, y'all are making me crazy.
We're just spitting facts, Mom.
Pachoo.
I think that, Mom, I think that that's probably the biggest difference between our generation and your generation. And I think that this podcast has proven it time and time and time again. I think in many ways, baby boomers look at the world in a very black and white fashion. This is right. This is wrong. This is acceptable. This is not. This is okay. This is bad. Like,
I think
and
there's
there's
merit to that.
that we grew up in the gray. We only lived in the gray.
Let me lay down an example. Callie walks into the kitchen. You're in there cooking, and she has a black eye. And she says, Cole hit me. Do you have the full story?
No, but I'm going to go get it.
You're
Where are you going to
Same
go get it for
situation.
this? You got to go get it.
You want me to call the honor student and ask her for the rest of it? Or do you want me
No,
to?
you already have her story.
We need the other two sides.
That's the point we're trying to make.
I get what you're saying. I just, what I hear you say is you can't give credence to any of this. You don't trust any of this to be the story, to be the accurate story,
The whole story. We don't trust it to be the whole story
but you don't know that it isn't either.
because I don't know that it is the whole story. So I'm not going to move forward based on it being the whole story when I don't have the whole story. I think that,
You
again,
go and ask almost anybody sitting in any jail or prison in the United States, they're not guilty. They didn't do what they're in there for.
Does that make every single one of them actually innocent?
No, and it doesn't make these kids innocent either. Even I came up and said, "You don't know where the 6-year-old was," but I still don't think handcuffing a 6-year-old is appropriate.
And you
Did
could
he
not
have a
But
think
there
gun?
that.
but there could be a line where it is though, right?
Did he have a gun? Then you can do that.
That
I
one
mean,
in that
the
one that shot
7-year-old.
his teacher? The
Yes,
6-year-old who shot his teacher?
yes.
So he could
Handcuff
have been
him.
handcuffed?
So you
He could
can
have been handcuffed.
handcuff a 6-year-old.
So that's the thing. That's what I keep saying and what I keep going back to. We have to be carefully regulating these things, not heavily regulating these things. If he has a gun, you can handcuff him. If she has a gun, can you handcuff her? Does it change based on gender? Does it
There's
change based
some
on skin color? Like that's where you have to go into the careful regulation of it all and say, hey, if this, then that. And those have to be wide and broad sweeping to be even kind of implementatable. What's the word there?
Implementable,
implementable.
but
Implementable.
I like
Here's the
implementatable
thing.
personally.
Thanks, Cole.
Here's the thing. There should be some common sense to this.
Mom, it's 2026 in America. We have an orange clown in the White House. Common sense is out the window.
She has a point.
A dying art.
It's not so common.
Yeah.
Again,
But-
if common sense
Oh.
existed, if people were raising their kids even close to the way that you did, do you think that this would be as significant of an issue? You don't think kids would be acting out this way? Again,
I
I
think kids would be
understand.
acting out. I do think
Of
kids would
course,
be acting
kids
out
would be
because they
acting
have
out.
been for years.
Did I ever kick or harm or attempt to harm any of my teachers ever?
I got in trouble one time for calling one of them a bitch, even though I didn't. Mom just about jumped down somebody's throat on that one.
Your mama did jump down somebody's throat on that one. I was mad at that principal.
And that's fair because
because
they need to be held accountable too. But we also need to
because
teach the
he
kids that
said
there are
he didn't
consequences and they
ask
need to
you
be held accountable.
he didn't ask you any questions. He didn't ask for anybody around you any questions. He took the teacher's word, who she even herself said, "Well, I think it was her, but I'm not sure." But you got in trouble for it.
Because
No.
there's 3 sides to every story. It all had to be chased down, and I'm so thankful that you took the time to go chase down all the different sides so that we could figure out what actually happened or what didn't
But
happen
here's
in
the
this
deal,
case.
Cal. That wasn't my job.
You're right.
I did it by default. That was that principal's job.
You're right,
He
but
should
that
have
is
had a
accountability.
conversation with you. He should have had a conversation with that teacher. And then if those didn't match up, he should have gone to and said, okay, who else saw this? Who else can I talk to? And where can this come from?
Totally 100% agree. Are you perfect?
No,
Do you do everything right the first time?
always.
Bullshit.
they-
I call bullshit.
Do you think they pay him enough to care that much?
It's
Regardless
not
of whether
all-
he should or shouldn't do it,
It is not
is
all
the
about
incentive there
money.
for him to do it?
It is not
Yes,
all
Mama,
about
it is.
No.
Every interaction that humans have with each other is incentive based.
Greed is the root of all evil.
And it doesn't have to be monetary.
No.
I protect you and Callie because I love you. And I want you to be around. That's greed on my part.
Then I guess I wanted him to be greedy enough about his students that he was willing to fight
And
for
that's-
his
But
students.
there's
And that's
no
totally
incentive to
staff.
drive that.
But Mom, that's totally fair for you to want. But wanting it and it being reality are not the same thing.
Holy
that's
shit,
where-
I feel so validated. This
These
is the
are the
best
episodes
episode
that
we've ever
scare the
I
had.
do
shit out
not
of
feel
me.
validated. at
Welcome to
all.
my life.
I feel ganged up on.
I just think that that's how accountability works, right? We are all humans. We all screw up. And that is how somebody that you trust, you have to come in and say, Kelly, you screwed up here. Mr. Principal, hold on. Ask more questions, sir. Like, there are so many opportunities here that we have to sit here and consider the gray. And that is all of our responsibility as productive members of this society to hold each other accountable and do. We have to, because we are not perfect, because we are human, because we do screw up, because we do get distracted sometimes, because we're
I
paying
think
attention
the-
over here.
One of the problems is is the incentives for not only holding ourselves accountable, but for holding each other accountable are so
Lackluster.
misprioritized and not recognized that people don't do it.
Isn't that the story here?
I think that
Holding
has a
these
lot to do with it. Yes.
holding these officers accountable for their
But it's not
behavior
just
within a school?
It's also the kids. The kids also have to be held accountable.
I don't disagree with you. I just feel like the way that this has been portrayed, it had nothing to do with the kids' accountability.
to me,
We
Mom, and I know this is extreme, but it's like blaming the gun for killing someone. I understand that that's not a completely fair analogy, but you're blaming the tool. Now, these are tools that should be intelligent and do have some accountability. I'm not trying to dispute that.
But right now they suck and they need some work from
Agreed.
all
and we're
facets.
all in agreement on that part.
Yeah. And I think that that's for me what this conversation boils down to. The rules and regulations and legislation that is in place right now is not good enough. It is
Right.
too strict and not strict enough and too stringent on and not stringent enough on various things. There is no common sense. There is no reality. There is theory versus reality. It's
Very
a
little
convoluted
accountability.
mess. Yes. And they need to be written with common sense, with reason, and with accountability all taken into consideration. And that is what we need to be advocating for. Not
And those
mom is
police
right and
officers
Cole is
need to
wrong or
not be
vice
the only
versa.
people we're holding accountable.
Agreed.
Because again, this is not the job that they are designed to do.
I agree with you.
They're a symptom.
100%.
The police officers are a symptom to a much bigger problem that stretches far and wide beyond them,
Well outside of schools.
well outside of schools.
Well, have y'all banged on me enough?
Oh, hush, you're fine.
Give me a
Yeah.
weird thought.
Okay. This one is rather schoolyard arithmetic, if I do say so myself. So recently, last week, yeah, still last week is the time as of the time of this episode airing, Elon Musk is officially, theoretically, a trillionaire. And our weird thought today is, how do you conceptualize a trillion? It's a million millions, which I think we've talked about before on this podcast, but we have some other examples of how to try, and because it's a number that's so big that like it's hard to even think about. So if we break it down in a few different ways, a million seconds is 11 and a half days. A
A million with
billion
an M.
seconds, yeah, a billion with a B seconds is 31.7 years. A trillion seconds is 31,700 years.
That again, it's almost not fathomable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got some more here. $1 trillion bills stacked on top of each other would reach 68,000 miles high. If I'm not mistaken, that's about halfway to the moon.
2.69 times around the earth.
Yeah, almost 3 of the Earth's circumference. If you were to spend $1 million every hour of every day, it would take more than a century to spend a trillion. If you were to spend $1 million a day, it would take more than 2,740 years to do it. $1 trillion is 5 million times larger than the median American household income.
5 million times larger.
Only 20 countries on the face of the planet have economies larger than 1.1 trillion, according to the IMF. So it's like 91, 92% of countries in the world have a GDP less than Elon Musk's net worth.
Theoretically.
The economy of Manhattan, home of financial powerhouses, has a gross domestic product of just over $1 trillion in 2024. So that's like the bulk of your big hedge funds and brokerage firms, Wall
Wall
Street.
Street.
That is the estimated value of all of the property in Houston.
All property.
All
Yeah.
property.
Houses, boats, cars,
Cars.
trucks, land, all property.
Yeah.
And
Other
Houston
tech
is the third
billionaires.
largest city in Texas?
Four.
Fourth largest?
Fourth largest city in the country.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you took all of the next four richest tech billionaires, Bezos, Larry Ellison, and Google founders Larry Page and Sergey Brin, they come in at 1.09 trillion. So the four
Combined.
of them together are still less than Elon Musk's estimated theoretical net worth. All of the professional sports teams on the planet. These are just some ways to try and conceptualize how big $1 trillion is. It's a lot.
Did it help you? And we want to say that that's not cash on hand that Elon has. That's
The
Theoretical.
value of assets that realistically, if he were to try and liquidate, would not be worth that much.
I don't
He
wanna know.
can't. That's the thing. He can't spend it.
I mean, you can't
It's
really.
not cash.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. $1 trillion. A trillionaire.
All right, Mom. What's
All right.
our good thought for our good
Okay.
news story this week?
This is a school doing a good job. The University of Virginia about 20 years ago, because students in their graduation ceremony were not really easily identified because they were all in the same thing, the hat and gown. And so they started carrying balloons to identify themselves to their family. So they would have a certain kind of balloon that, identified them. And so they've done this for about 20 years. But about 6 years ago, they started what's called the Balloon Brigade. And they started taking those donated balloons from each individual student that had carried them. And then they take them over to the University of Virginia Children's Hospital and donate them to the kids. And so I just thought it was such a full, fun story that here you've got graduating college seniors who are doing something fun and entertaining to kind of tell the story of their life. And then they're donating those and giving them over to kids in a hospital. So I just thought it was a really fun community service idea. This year they had record breaking donations and the number of volunteers that were happy. And y'all, this was like big box trucks full of balloons that they were donating, carrying out and giving out to kids. Just a fun story.
That is fun.
That's cool.
I liked it. So I still love y'all, even if y'all were mean to me today.
And we still love you, even if you're stuck in black and white. Love you, Mom.
Love you
Love you
too.
guys.
Love y'all.
Bye.